Today with you. This is kind of a special LinkedIn Live. Uh, During my travels and our international book club and my activism around diversity and inclusion, I was privileged to meet the amazing Furkan Karayel. And I am thrilled that she is here with us today. Welcome, Furkan.
Thank you so much, Harriet, for this warm introduction. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us here today.
Fantastic. And for those of you who don't know, and quite a few of you have already joined in, we have this chat. We welcome your questions and your inputs. I've received many already. And then we release the recording for everyone else to enjoy. So let's get on. The wonderful Furkan is already a multi-award winning keynote speaker and an inclusive leadership advisor at diversin.com. She lectures in equality, diversity, and inclusion on the master's program at a very, very famous Institute of Art, Design, and Technology in Dublin. And she's going to tell you a little bit more about that. But we're privileged to have you, Furkan. And I want to start at the beginning. Today, Furkan is in Turkey. She showed me the beautiful view when we started. She's in her granny's little house. And it's a great starting point to hear Furkan kind of simply and not, I know there's a whole book in this journey, a bit about your childhood, your parents, your studies, and how you got from the start to kind of where you are now.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for starting from the beginning, because I believe it all makes sense to start from scratch. If I tell it in a nutshell, I always dreamed of working in a tech company as a software engineer. Growing up in a small town in Turkey in 90s, I didn't have any role models, and not even on papers or TVs. But my passion was in technology. I was really drawn into that technology. I was very energized by, working by myself. I try to produce something related to tech. So that was my passion. And I was very, very lucky to have both of my parents, my mom and my dad, who were always supportive on me and on my journey, and whatever my lifetime decisions, they always supported me. So far, I'm really grateful to have them. And I tell you a little bit of the story from my childhood, that one day I dared to share my dream at school, that I want to be a software engineer. And one of my teachers pulled me to the side very angrily. She said, "Furkan, please come back to real world. Come on, I don't think it's gonna happen." And that really touched me. And I invite everyone to put yourselves in my shoes. How would you feel? I was very heartbroken, and I felt, even if I will end up being a software engineer or not, but let me dream of it at least. Just don't cut this dream. So I was very frustrated, but I was very lucky to get the support from my dad, especially, who is a construction engineer. And he used to say, "Furkan, you know what? You will be a businesswoman one day. You will be successful. The world will know your name." So these words really were motivating me. So I went to college in Istanbul, and in the middle of my studies, I got transferred to the big bright city of Athlone in the middle of Ireland. And coming from 12 million city to 20,000 population of the city, it was a big culture shock. But I got an opportunity to graduate from the university that I came, which is Athlone IT, and I'm super happy to be a graduate from Athlone IT. Graduated from software engineering, and I landed into my dream job 2 weeks after my graduation. And I was delighted. I was like, yay, this is my lifetime, goal achieved. I'm sorted. I'll probably retire from here. That's end of the story. But it was the beginning of many things. So I worked in tech sector for about 10 years in multinational tech companies, and I've seen this was being repeated over and over again for so many organizations, that women were always in minority. And when it comes to women in leadership, it was even in more minority. And when it comes to women with different ethnic background in the leadership positions of big tech companies, you wouldn't even see that at all. And this was a big wake up call for me. And I said, I need to do something about it. And 5 years ago, I founded my company Diverse In to bring action oriented diverse and inclusion. And it also led me to write my book with the work that I have done with so many different leaders globally. And so, yeah, now I'm in the journey. Yes, I have the book here as well. I'm on the journey to spread out the message of the learnings from inclusive leaders, how they inspired me and others in their organizations, and what are the takeaways from them, how do they implement inclusion on a day-to-day basis. And I completed 12 cities so far, so who knows, I might be coming to your city as well. Stay in touch, and you may get an opportunity to get a signed book from me.
Fantastic. Well, Furkan, thank you. We're on a LinkedIn Live, really exploring with the author Furkan Karayel, inclusive intelligence. And she has just described her journey from a small town in Turkey to being the global executive that she is. Now, one of the questions, Furkan, that has come up a lot, and particularly as you're sat in Granny's flat in your hometown, is how do you start when your family is perhaps not as wonderful as your own? How do you influence your immediate family or community members that because of your age, your sex, your color, your creed, your sexuality, your gender identity, your physical or your cognitive abilities, that if you're good, you will get on, that you are special because of your unique differences. Before we talk about corporations, tell us about a couple of tips people are asking for to help influence and persuade those closest to you of the value of diversity and inclusion.
Mm-hmm. I think I was very lucky to have my parents who supported me, but on the other side, I had my siblings who always criticized me. And we are six in the family, and I'm number four. So we had this how to say, discussion with between sisters,
Yeah.
siblings, and you can do, you can't do, blah blah, why. And my motivation with them was, if this doesn't work out, it's my mistake, it's my learning, and this was my decision. If I fail on their decision, it's even worse,
Mm.
because I didn't get an opportunity to try my decision and I failed again. I took the advice, and I'm learning this by myself. Still, I'm trying to practice that. If I own a decision, I should I should try it rather than trying someone else's advice, because at the end of the day, even we feel satisfied from our own failures rather than someone else's advice. And no one knows you better than someone else. It's you. Whatever the right decision, you know it better than anyone else. So don't let this power, don't let your power to give away to someone else. It's your power, you own it. And if it's a failure, it's fine, it's your failure, it's not someone else's failure. So
That's
I'm
great.
learning that myself as well.
That's a great example. And in the book, which I really advocate everyone reads, it's already a bestseller. It's already a winner. It's called Inclusive Intelligence: How to Be a Role Model for diversity and inclusion in the workplace, one of the questions that came up a lot that people wanted me to ask you, apart from your father, the teacher who kind of gave you a reverse motivation or role modeling, your siblings. Give us an example of a powerful role model once you got into, Ireland and your business. I know you said you didn't have any when you were young, but tell us about role models and how a couple you've had and what makes them special.
Mm-hmm. One of the great role model to me is Ariana Huffington.
Mm-hmm.
And her platform, Huffington Post, she founded, was a learning point for me as well. How she collected people around her to contribute and how it got successful. And eventually, now she's working on Thrive Global, on her learning again how overwhelmed she was, working too much, and then she burned out, and then she get to understand by hitting her head to the ground that she had to prioritize her well-being, and this is the most important thing in her life, and always had to be, but she delayed it. I'm learning so much from her experience, her wisdom, her books. Tribe is one of my favorite book as well. And I feel so resonating to her story, coming to London from Greece, and
Yes.
her stories from her mom, from her granny. It just felt like, yeah, that is so much resonation. And yeah, she's being a great, even though she doesn't know about it, she has been a great role model to me. And I think
Well, I think she soon will know about it, and we'll have to take as a little objective that we get the two of you together. I think you would get on amazingly, and if you take that example and the book that you've written with some amazing examples in here from Arcana right the way through. There's some great reflections and tools in the book. What do you think it takes to be a mover and a shaker in making diversity happen? Not talking about it, though that is important, but demonstrating in your work that both the psychology, the hearts and minds, the physiology, all of the metrics and numbers, and the structure of your organization reflects, deep diversity and inclusion. What does it take, in your opinion, Furkan?
I think believing in 100% changes the view altogether. Sometimes we doubt on our intention, in our commitment. But what I learned from inclusive leaders, I learned that from them a lot, so that I wrote the book actually. But they have no doubt on their commitment, and they go to great lengths, do their best to put their voice and their team's voice into whatever they do, whatever the product they produce. And in the production, you see those people in those products, and it's just very beautiful to see that they put their heart on it.
Mm,
And these leaders initiate that, actually they make that space, safe space, for their teams to put their hearts into whatever the work that involves. It's sometimes working in, for example, in a software
yeah,
industry, it's difficult to see that physical thing in your hand. Even when I published my book, it felt very different than building a software, because it is something physical. I could hold it in my hand. But on
yes.
the other side, inclusive leaders make that space for for their teams to put their heart, their personality, their authenticity, their uniqueness. and the diversity that they all bring into the products that they produce. So I think this is so beautiful.
I agree. I think it's logical and it's beautiful. So, one of the questions we've received, and this came, I don't know if you recall, Furkan, but after you and I met, I wrote a little bit about meeting you and saying we were going to, get together. And so, one of the questions is, have you met Furkan? Yes, most definitely. We met together and sat and talked. And the second is, you know, did Furkan ask you any questions when you'd met? And I said, oh, yes. She's a really, really strong interviewer. So there's a request for what is a Harriet always asks questions of her marvelous guests. Do you have a diversity and inclusion question that you would like to pose and turn the tables a little bit?
Absolutely. I think the first question I asked Harriet was, and I would like to ask in front of everyone as well. And I was very fascinated to hear your stories working in so many different organizations, and your experience was very unique. So, in terms of diversity and inclusion, everyone has their motivation, and their motivation are different to think of diversity and inclusion. So where did your motivation actually start to bring diversity and inclusion into the organizations that you worked?
Yeah, and I thought then it was a great question, and I think it is now. I mean, for me, I really feel that because of a number of things, where I lived in the middle of a beautiful but very remote part of the world, my father's illness and then death, and how my siblings, my mother, and I sort of came together, that I've always felt a little bit of an outsider, not entirely part of the landowning classes in the Cotswolds, a very strong elder sibling. And so my motivation is that somewhere through nature and nurture, I have a voice. And I've always, from a very little girl, been able to articulate that voice on behalf of me and other people. I like to support those that are underrepresented, that are less supported. And that's just a major part of my makeup. And as I became, increasingly active in business and in the life of different industries and sectors and countries, I used that voice, I hope, increasingly for good. And I have a deep, deep belief, deep in my soul, that because my father used to tell me all the time, my opinion mattered. So I sort of think it does. And that, we are all uniquely special. And I've always been nervous of the groupings of very similar peoples, that herd think, that, old boy club, whatever it is. I have seen in business that the richness of the solutions you create when you have different cognitive, physical, gender, sexuality, our unique differences give us perspectives that create, in my experience, very high performing teams.
Wow, that's so beautiful. And your voice definitely makes a difference in the world. And it's absolutely a pleasure to share this scene with you, the stage with you today, Harriet. And I'm very, very inspired on, even when I'm seeing the post that you share on LinkedIn, on any platform that I'm uh, seeing you, I feel so much inspired by your stories, your words, your inspiration. And thank you for all of these, and being an ally, being an advocate for diversity and inclusion. And
Oh,
can I
it's
ask,
oh, go on.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you. That is most kind, but you really are the inspiration. And I have another question for you. I know you've got one more for me too, but I've had this question now a number of times from people about, you know, you are in relative terms still relatively young. You've done so much. And the question that people are asking is, so what does success look like for you? What is a next kind of big goal that we can help with, that we can participate in? There's a lot of lovely interest in, so far, so great, amazing. But what does the next step of great success look like, Furkan?
Well, there is no one strong answer to this because my success is constantly changing by the way that I'm, like my business is growing, my profile is growing. So success is changing all the time for me, and I absolutely love it. And for my next step, I would love to see the implementation of inclusive intelligence method in many different organizations. So that is hopefully my next step, and I will be launching any software that will be measuring inclusive intelligence level for organizations, and then hopefully that will be a starting of the conversation, and then we will be able to measure how they are actually doing better in the next period. And unless it's not measured, we can't see the difference. The book has been spreading out so well. I absolutely love it. Now it's time to automate it so that it's going to be a very good report for any organization who can take forward on their implementation of inclusive intelligence. So that is
I
my
think that,
aim.
yeah, that is so important, Furkan, because what's unusual about your work is this fusion of technology, particularly software that can help in the understanding, the measurement, the goal setting. And so your technologist and your inclusive and diverse being sort of come together very, very powerfully. And there's a question that's come up for both of us, the same question, and you can kick it off. But a couple of people have said, what do you wish you'd have known when you started out and perhaps done a little differently? I mean, you're an amazing success. I'm not suggesting, and no one else is, that you took any missteps, not at all. But what you wish you'd known and what you wish you'd done a little differently. And I will be equally as candid too.
What I would recommend to my younger self is to I'm still struggling with that, to be honest, because I can do the software, I can do the social media, I can do that and that. I feel like, if I sit down, I can do anything. So I end up doing everything in my business. But now I'm in the position of Furkan, what you could have hand over some of your work to a team, and I wish I started this process a bit earlier. So taking everything on myself has been challenging. I feel like, what, I can do it in 5 minutes, so why do I spend like 10 minutes explaining to someone else, has been the challenge from the beginning. So I think I would hand over some of my work earlier if I have known that that's not going to be sustainable at all. What do you think? What is your one?
Yeah, I mean, you inspire me always to be so honest. I think I think what I would have told my younger self and what I wish I'd known, I think because of a lot of things, I was quite angry with lots and lots of, particularly, I guess I didn't have any male role models after my father died, really. So I think I'd have known that I didn't have to be quite so angry, and that I might have focused on being a bit more likable and a little less assertive. And also, even though all the criticism I've really received in my life has been around just the endless push and drive to achieve as much as you can in the day, I still believe I should be going faster and doing more. And so, those would be my two reflections, being equally as honest as you. Do those make sense?
Yeah, it resonates a lot. Yeah.
I don't see much anger in you. You seem a very balanced, even, measured individual. And are you?
Well, I am actually, like, I used to be more. I'm learning to balance myself. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I can do, but there is that side of me as well, is ready to, explode a bomb. Like, that happens to me a lot at some days of at some stage. Yes, I'm struggling with that too.
Well, there's been also an amazing question here about advice. We have a lot of people on this call. There'll be hopefully thousands, as usual, that watch the recording, who are in organizations, leading organizations. And I think we should both, starting with you from your amazing book and interviews, what is your advice as we really gain greater inclusive intelligence and get amazingly diverse organizations? What's your advice that you would give out here to the people listening?
Mm-hmm. My first advice, it's the message that I'm trying to give in my book as well. Just don't wait, start from today. Because by time, even though a little step or little intervention that you take, by time it will be exponential. It will be growing. And I give this example: if you are in control of an aircraft, if you make 1 degree of change, by time you end up in a completely different destination. It's all about making that conscious habit turning into or action turning into habit by time. So having to think, okay, what can I do? Can I do maybe more thank you in my team, or can I include one simple word within my team meetings that will make my team more valued, safe, and heard? So what I can do, at least one thing from today, that by time it will be better and it will be more um, inspiring of others to be themselves as well, and to be more comfortable with me when I'm in conversation with them. So I think, for everyone, it's different. Everyone's conditions are different, but finding out that one little thing you can start doing from today would be my
Yeah.
advice.
I think that's brilliant. What I love about you, Furkan, is that you are so practical, and practicality in this pursuit is incredible. I would say, endorsing everything that Furkan has said, I think if you work in a company, lead a company, thinking of joining a company, I look at this problem like an organism. So, what is the psychology of the diversity, inclusion, and equity approach inside of the company? What are the hearts and minds? What is the culture? Secondly, and Furkan's already mentioned this, what is the physiology? The nerve endings, the blood flows, the systems, the processes, the measurements, the tools, the metrics that show how well a company is or isn't doing. And then finally, the anatomy, the structure. I'm a big believer that if you can see it, you can be it. How many very different types of people can you see in your company at all levels? And then the piece of advice personally I always give when people say, I don't know the right words, I don't know where to start. I always say, just lead with your heart. If people feel that you love them because of who they are, and you love those differences, and you ask about their culture and their country and their diet and their family and their granny, and you just level out the human connection, you can do that in your very next conversation, right, Furkan? I mean, that works, doesn't it?
I absolutely loved it. Behaving it from the heart, and it's very visible, isn't it? Once somebody approach you and ask you something and you respond with your heart, and it shows your interest, it shows your curiosity, it shows your good intention, and it's just so beautiful to
And
start the conversation with that heart
it is.
piece.
And even when you make a mistake, one of my dear friends, when I'm excited with them, I sometimes get their pronouns wrong. And instead of they, I say she. And then I say, oh, I'm so sorry, Ella. It should be they. And she says, Harriet, I know what you mean. You lead with your heart. And, you don't need to be perfect to make a difference. As you say, Furkan, you need to start, you need to pick one thing, and you need to lead with your heart. So I think that's amazing. And we're coming up now as people are changing in and changing out. We're just closing out with the amazing Furkan Karayel on her extraordinary book, Inclusive Intelligence. Furkan, what would be, your final sort of comment, wish? What would you like to say, not only to those on now, but those who will watch the recording and the thousands and thousands of people who will go on to read your book? What is your final, set of words that we can all hang on?
Thank you so much, Harriet. That's been a great conversation. I absolutely loved it. And I would like to finish it with a lovely, powerful quote from Mino Shafiq. And it says, in the past, jobs were about muscles. Now they are about brains, but in the future, they will be about the heart.
That's lovely. Absolutely wonderful. For those of you who want to know more about how you can, like any form of intelligence, improve your inclusive intelligence and become better role models in your workplace, do read Furkan's book. It is a #1 bestseller. Do follow us. So you can follow me and Furkan in our journeys around the world as we live and breathe being activists for EDI in every single form. So it's always a pleasure to spend time with you, Furkan. You bring a sense of light and hope and belief into this challenged environment. And it's been a great pleasure to host you today.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is mine, Harriet. I'm so inspired by you and your work on EDI. And that was a pleasure talk for me. And hopefully, see you next time.
You bet. And please thank your granny for letting us have your quiet flat upstairs where you can talk to us all. And hopefully you'll have a nice cup of tea with her.
Thank you.
Take
Thank you
care.
so much.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.